No one in that town had the slightest clue that the most dangerous man among them was sitting right there on the stone ground, mocked, dismissed, treated like trash by people who wouldn't last a single hit from him. But on that day, standing before 6 karate masters, he was about to do the impossible and rewrite the history of that town forever. The sun hadn't yet burned through the fog hanging over the old village when 6 figures marched down the main street in perfect rhythm. Loose training pants swayed around legs carved from years of discipline, torsos bare, muscles like steel ropes hardened by decades of controlled violence. Their eyes, cold as granite, were locked on only one thing: the man on the ground, dressed in ragged clothes, nursing a bottle between his fingers. He looked out of place, like a glitch in the scene. The burnt orange cloth draped over him clashed with the wooden buildings around. His body slouched, legs spread out, gaze unfocused, like he didn't know where he was, or like he knew far too well. A crowd began to form. Some pulled out phones. Others just stood there, fear written all over their faces. The air smelled of tension, thick, electric. Everyone felt it. Something was about to happen, something that shouldn't. The man on the ground raised the bottle, took a long, almost disrespectful swig, while the masters closed in. He didn't speak, didn't look at them. Just sat there, vulnerable yet carrying the strange weight of someone who had survived worse battles, both inside and out. "That drunk's ruining the training," one of the local gym kids sneered, trying to nudge him with his foot. But nobody dared touch him. The eldest of the 6, Kazuo Takeda, stopped just a few feet away. His fists were clenched, breath steady. He studied the man more carefully than the others. "There's something off here," he muttered in Japanese. The scars across the man's face told stories no book would ever hold. He looked lost, but the way his shoulders hung, the way his hand gripped that bottle, it gave him away. He wasn't drunk, he was waiting. One of the younger masters broke ranks, impulsive, hungry to prove the strength of traditional Japanese karate on American soil, in front of the crowd, in front of the cameras. He shouted, swung a high kick straight for the man's head. But before his foot landed, the drunk slipped sideways like a rag caught in the wind. The kick cut nothing but air. The laughter died. The man rose slowly, as if in slow motion. His movements were far too deliberate to be luck. He staggered, let the bottle slip from his hand, and in the same breath snapped a light strike to the young master's neck. The kid crumbled to his knees, eyes wide, throat locked, as if struck by a silent lightning bolt. The crowd froze, silent. People stepped back without even realizing it. Kazuo Takeda finally spoke. "You're no ordinary drunk. Who are you?" The man looked at him for the first time, and for the first time in years, his eyes burned with clarity. "I'm what's left. When everything you love gets destroyed," he rasped. 2 more masters moved in, cautious this time. They flanked him, but the man standing now wasn't the same as the one sitting seconds ago. Every step looked like a stumble, but each was a trap. Every loose swing hid deadly precision, and in less than 20 seconds, both were sprawled on the ground, bodies twisted, bones snapped. The crowd erupted, screams, children crying. Even the cop station nearby edged closer, then froze. The man breathed deep, like he was waking from a coma. Sweat streaked down his forehead, but his bare feet pressed into the earth with unnerving steadiness. Kazuo Takeda slid off the top of his gi. His chest bore scars of old wars, battles long past. But even with his training, there was fear in his eyes. Then a woman's voice cut through the chaos. "His name is Ethan Crane. He was a Unit 77 team leader in the U.S. Special Forces, disappeared after the Osaka mission. They said he was dead, but I was there. He didn't die, he vanished." Kazuo's breath hitched. He stepped back. He wiped out an entire village with his bare hands. Ethan rolled his shoulders, drew in a slow breath. His voice came calm but soaked in pain. "I came here looking for peace, and they gave me violence. The ground cracked under his step. The last of the 6 masters lunged forward. It was the beginning of a massacre that would carve itself into the town's history forever. The city felt like a battlefield, frozen in silence. San Leandro, California, just a forgotten shadow wedged between Oakland and the hills. Boarded-up storefronts, dead streetlights, alleys thick with a silence so heavy it felt like people were holding their breath. That's where Ethan Crane had chosen to disappear. A ghost hiding among ghosts. Locals spoke of him like some urban legend, the drunk in orange. Some swore he'd snapped after the war. Others whispered he'd wiped out his own squad for revenge. No one really knew. They just knew one thing. Drunk or not, anyone who got too close paid a price. Near the abandoned rail station, a woman in a grey coat kept watch. Lucy Moreno, 34, investigative journalist at the community station. She'd tailed Ethan for weeks. She knew this guy wasn't ordinary. And after watching him drop 3 masters in seconds that morning, she was convinced this wasn't just some legend, this was bigger. "He doesn't fight like a martial artist," she whispered into the recorder hidden in her sleeve. "He slips past them, like he already knows what's coming." Across town, inside a repurposed temple-turned-dojo, the 6 masters gathered. They'd come from Japan for exhibitions and diplomacy. But there was another mission too. Track down and erase a threat long buried by Japan's self-defense forces. Kazuo Takeda, the eldest, flipped through a battered dossier. Operation Broken Tooth, Unit 77, Ethan Crane, he read under his breath. Capable of neutralizing 3 targets in under 2 seconds, classified unstable after the Osaka mission. Containment order, approved, never executed. One of them, Yusuke Watanabe, muttered without lifting his eyes. So it's true. The man who destroyed the Kurai clan is still alive. Kazuo gave a small nod, and he's closer than ever. Meanwhile, Ethan walked the narrow streets under the harsh glow of late afternoon. His pace was slow, but his mind raced. He didn't want to fight, he wanted to forget. But the bottle wasn't cutting it anymore. Nothing was. Each step dragged him back to what he'd sworn to erase. In the alley beside an abandoned laundromat, a kid bumped into him. "Sorry, mister," the boy stammered. Ethan smiled, crouched, ruffled the kid's hair, but when he rose, he spotted a camera lens glinting from the pole above. "They already know," he muttered, almost to himself. From a nearby rooftop, Lucy watched the feed live. Her hands shook. The energy between Ethan and the 6 masters wasn't just a fight brewing. It felt like an execution waiting to happen, and the reason was still buried. A flicker of memory tore through his mind, screaming in Japanese, a child crying, flames eating through walls, Ethan younger, blood-covered, carrying a body, his eyes staring into something the camera never caught. Back in the present, Lucy whispered, "He hasn't lost everything. He's hiding something." Kazuo knew it too. The night before, he'd sent a quiet report to the consulate. Target is active. Intervention required. Civilian contact confirmed. Risk of exposure imminent. By dawn, San Leandro would feel heavier. Streets wouldn't just be streets anymore. They'd be stages. A war between past and present, between honor and guilt. The city didn't sleep that night. Used to petty crime and fleeting shadows, San Leandro now buzzed on high alert. Security cams caught more than they should. Anonymous posts flooded local forums. The man in orange dropped 3 fighters with one slap. Cops were there, none of them moved. One Japanese master actually bowed to him. But the detail nobody could explain. How a guy who looked like a bum moved like a living legend, with surgical precision, cold control, and silent brutality. Kazuo hadn't expected it to spiral this fast. He knew Ethan Crane, knew what he was capable of, but theory was one thing, reality was another. The 5 masters left were torn between fear and pride. Takeshi Nomura, the youngest, couldn't take it anymore. "We're letting him walk free," he shouted, fists tight. "That's not honor. It's cowardice." Kazuo, seated before a small altar draped with the Takeda banner, didn't even look up. "You don't understand. We're not facing a man. We're facing the reflection of what we created ourselves." Silence. "He carries a wound that never healed. And a man bleeding on the inside doesn't hesitate to kill on the outside." Meanwhile, Lucy kept tailing Ethan, slipping behind vans, containers, alleys, the recorder in her sleeve still rolling. But she hadn't expected what came next. He saw her. Ethan stopped at Jefferson and 9th. His steps froze. He turned slightly, voice steady. "You can come out now, kid." Lucy froze. There was no way he could have known. She was yards away, silent, hidden. "You don't hide well," he continued without looking. "Your steps are light, but you hold your breath when you get close. And you smell like cheap ink from a newsroom." She stepped out, hesitant. "How do you know all that?" Ethan locked eyes with her for long seconds before answering. "Because I used to hunt people like you, before I was forgotten." She swallowed hard. "Why'd you let them live today?" "Because I still get to choose." He walked away. But Lucy understood then. The only thing keeping the city breathing was the thin leash Ethan had on himself. The next morning, the masters laid their trap. An old truck factory. Front doors chained shut, back left open. A local informant, paid in cash and promises, tipped them off. Ethan passed through there at 5:30 a.m. every day on his drifting route. They were right. At 5:34 a.m., Ethan appeared. No bottle this time, shoulders squared, eyes sharp. He knew. Takeshi struck first. A scream, a spinning kick, too fast for most men to even register. Ethan just leaned back as if the wind carried him. The kick skimmed past his chin. Ethan caught the leg midair and hurled Takeshi into a steel wall with one arm. The crash boomed like thunder. Two more closed in, one high, one from behind. Ethan pivoted, slipped the first, blocked the second with his forearm, then drove a short strike into the sternum. The fighter dropped like someone had flipped a switch. From the shadows, Kazuo watched, and in that moment he knew he's still rusty. But when he remembers who he really is, no one here walks out alive. Ethan stood in the center of the factory, 3 masters down, 2 stepping back. He didn't attack. He waited. Then he spoke, eyes on the dark where Kazuo hid. "They're just students, Kazuo. Why send them first? You afraid?" The silence stretched. Finally, Kazuo stepped out of the shadows. "No, I have respect. And I'm waiting for you to tell me why you've come back to the surface." Ethan's reply was ice cold. "Because this time, I'm not stopping." Outside, Lucy streamed everything live to her underground network. The city was waking up. The name Ethan Crane was already spreading online. Hashtags, clips, theories blowing up. But the full truth? Nobody knew. Because the real question still hung in the air. Who was the monster here? Ethan? Or the ones who came to erase him? While the ambush video spread across the internet like gasoline on dry brush, Lucy realized she'd crossed the line from observer to participant. She was no longer just watching. She'd become a fragile link between a dangerous truth and a world that wasn't ready for it. That same afternoon, her phone rang. Unknown number. "You really gonna publish this?" a man's voice asked, calm, cold. "Who is this?" she said. "Someone who's seen Ethan Crane kill a dozen men with his bare hands and cry after everyone." The line went dead. Lucy felt her spine go cold. It wasn't a story anymore. It was an undeclared war, and she was in the middle of it. Out on the outskirts of San Leandro, in a dusty, abandoned church, Ethan had reappeared. The place, windows smashed, pews coated in grime, was where he slept, trained, and hid what little memory he let himself keep. An old backpack, a torn photo of a woman holding a baby, and a fake Japanese diplomatic passport stained with dried blood. The subplot of his disappearance was starting to stitch itself together. Ethan hadn't vanished by choice. He'd been hunted, not just by the masters, but by agencies, by governments, by institutions that had used him as a disposable weapon. Meanwhile, one of the wounded masters, Koji Tanaka, was patching up in a makeshift hospital set up in an allied dojo. In whispers, he told an old friend that Kazuo Takeda didn't have official leave to be in the US. "He's here on his own," Koji rasped between coughs. "This is personal. It's not diplomacy, it's revenge." Flashback, Okinawa, 7 years earlier. Kazuo cradles his son's body, blood on the wooden floor. A man fleeing through a window. Ethan. Back in the present, Kazuo watched the city from a rooftop, hands shaking. He didn't kill on orders. He killed because he was betrayed, he told himself. But vengeance wasn't rational anymore. It had become a habit he couldn't break. Tension tightened like a wire. The Japanese embassy had already been warned informally about Ethan's presence. Unmarked helicopters began to circle overhead. Lucy got an anonymous message. "If you don't scrub that footage, they'll make you disappear." She didn't back down. There was something that tied her to Ethan's pain. In the torn photo he kept, she recognized the face. It was her sister. Lucy went to the church, alone. Ethan was there, wiping his hands with a damp towel. "You knew from the start?" he asked without looking up. "No, but now I do. That kid in the photo, my nephew." He nodded. "She was killed after the Osaka mission. They wanted the village erased. Women, children. I said no. They killed her, burned everything. I ran. From them, from myself." Lucy sat, trembling. This was no longer a story. It was an inheritance of pain. "They're coming for you to wipe you out, Ethan. This time for good." "Then let them come. They'll fall one by one," he said. Meanwhile, Kazuo received a sealed envelope. An old Yakuza contact warned him the CIA was tracking Ethan and had clearance to take lethal action. The countdown began. They had 48 hours. If Kazuo didn't kill Ethan first, the Americans would, then erase everyone involved, masters included. Kazuo couldn't let the clan's honor end like that. But deep down, he knew honor was gone. All that remained was pain. In parallel, the young master Takeshi, the one still clinging to the idea of redemption, sought Ethan out secretly. "You can still walk away," he pleaded. "I saw what you did. You held back. You could have killed us all. But you didn't." Ethan only said, "I'm not who I was." "But they keep forcing me back." All the threads were closing. Lucy had uncovered a plot to politically discredit Kazuo. The fight with Ethan would be spun into a diplomatic weapon. Ethan learned Kazuo didn't want to kill him so much as die for his own failure. Time ran short. The city teetered on the edge of becoming the stage for an international incident. And the man everyone called a drunk was the only thing keeping collapse at bay. Night fell over San Leandro like a heavy drape. The air thickened. The rotors of unidentified helicopters hummed a menacing chorus above. Unmarked vehicles prowled the streets with lights off. Something was coming. In the old church where Ethan hid, Lucy typed furiously on her laptop, routing through an encrypted server. She was preparing the biggest exposé of her career. Names, Black Ops, and Ethan Crane's buried file. But before she could send it, the screen went dark. "Shit," she muttered, pounding the keys. The front door creaked open. Ethan stumbled in, soaked with sweat, bruises blooming across his body. He dropped a metal box on the table, the CIA insignia stamped on its lid. "I grabbed this off one of their trucks," he said, tossing the box toward her. "They weren't just after me, they're after you too." Lucy opened it. Classified files spilled out, photos of her, emails, transcripts. The CIA had been watching her long before the fight footage leaked. They knew about my sister. "They knew about me," she said, voice shaking. Ethan stared into the room's dimness. "This isn't a manhunt anymore, it's a cleanup." A little drone slipped through the broken window and hovered. Ethan reacted with frightening precision. He snatched a plank and smashed the device with a single swing. "They're coming," he said, pulling on his coat. "But before that, there's something you need to know." Flashback. Unit 77 base, 2 years before Osaka. Ethan stands before a screen. Kazuo appears via satellite. "The mission is clear. Erase all records of the Kurai experimental base. No witnesses." Ethan hesitates. "There are civilians there. Children. This is not a negotiation, Crane. This is war." Back in the present, Ethan looked at Lucy. Kazuo wasn't just a master. He was my contact inside the CIA. The revelation flipped everything. Kazuo Takeda, the man hunting him now under a false cloak of honor, had ordered the village razed where Lucy's sister died. Worse, he'd used Ethan to carry out the deed. He wanted me to take the blame, to vanish. He made me the villain so his clan's name would be clean, Ethan said. Lucy sank down, numb. So all this, the fight, the hunt, was just him trying to cover the mistake he made? "It's more than that," Ethan answered, eyes burning. "It's him making sure no one ever finds out he ordered the killing of innocents." That night, Kazuo gathered the last 3 masters in an isolated warehouse. Takeshi, head bowed, trembled. "Master Kazuo, something's wrong with this mission," he said. "Why not involve the consulate? Why not hand Crane over to the Americans?" Kazuo stepped forward slowly. "Because the hell I created is mine to clean up." But he knew too that there was no cleanup left, only blood. At 3:12 a.m., the city went into tactical lockdown. Communication towers were cut, police pushed back. Documents Lucy found called it an experimental containment maneuver, a sham to cover Ethan's execution and silence anyone who knew too much. But Ethan expected it. In a gutted garage, he set crude traps, bottles rigged like napalm, tripwires tied to iron stakes, sensors wired to disposable radios. Lucy watched from the shadows, stunned by the cold method to it all. "You've done this before," she whispered. "More times than I want to admit," he replied. But then, it was for them. The final turn came at 4:26 a.m. Kazuo Takeda walked alone into the street where Ethan stood. No bodyguards, no masters, no weapons. "I came alone," he called. Ethan stepped out of the dark, caked in dust and sweat. "You never come alone, Kazuo." Kazuo dropped something at Ethan's feet, a voice recorder. "Listen," he said. Ethan pressed play. The recording was a secret CIA meeting with Japan's defense ministry. Kazuo Takeda gave us all the Kurai operation records. He guaranteed Crane would disappear. In exchange, we scrubbed his clan's name from the blacklist. That was the deal. Ethan closed his eyes. "You sold me to save your name." Kazuo did not answer. He simply dropped to his knees. "Kill me, Crane. I deserve it." But Ethan didn't move. "No. You'll pay, but it won't be as simple as dying." Lucy's camera rolled. The world was about to learn who the real villain was, and now no one could control the story anymore. The sun rose blood-red over San Leandro. From the rooftop where Lucy's camera was mounted, the live stream had been running for more than 4 hours, broadcast to anonymous secure servers and mirrored across thousands of accounts. Kazuo Takeda's voice, confessing the secret operation, echoed online like a verdict. Operation Kurai flooded social media, forums, even cautious news outlets. The CIA stayed quiet. The Japanese consulate denied everything. But it was too late. The world knew. And Ethan Crane, the man they tried to erase, was now the face of a truth too big to bury. Inside the old church, Lucy stared at her laptop with heavy eyes. She hadn't slept, hadn't eaten. The file was complete, the evidence delivered. But her body trembled, not from fear, but from urgency. "They'll try to kill him before the world reacts," she whispered. The city was already shifting. News crews pressed against barricades, protests gathered. Some shouted for justice, others for silence. But Ethan Crane's name bled across walls, posters, t-shirts, from mystery drunk to mythic figure in just 48 hours. Kazuo had nothing left to say. After the recording, he met his men at the rendezvous, unwrapped the black belt he'd carried for nearly 40 years, and set it on the ground. "I'm done," he said simply, but the other masters refused. Takeshi confronted him. "You started this. You used the clan. You turned us into killers." Kazuo nodded, not defending himself. "Then finish what I couldn't." And he walked away, alone. Lucy sprinted through empty streets until she found Ethan in a deserted industrial yard, rigging what looked like his final trap. "They're coming?" All 5, and this time, no honor, just instinct. She tried to speak, but he cut her off. "Leave. This isn't yours anymore. You've done what you had to do." But Lucy didn't move. "They killed my sister. They stole your name, and now they want to erase you again. If you fall, I fall too." Ethan looked at her with tired eyes, and for the first time, he embraced someone, quick, silent, but real. The next dawn, the 5 masters arrived. No cameras, no crowd, no warning. They came like ghosts from a past that refused to die. Ethan waited alone, no traps, no bottle, just the stripped-down body of a survivor with nothing left to lose. The fight was brutal, no honor, no tradition, just blood, rage, and technique. A clash not for points, but for legacy, guilt, and truths buried under forgotten corpses. Takeshi fell first, a clean strike to the neck. 2 others hesitated. Ethan didn't chase. He stood still, waiting. And when they came, he unleashed a savagery none of their training had prepared them for. Hours later, Lucy stepped into the field. 5 bodies lay scattered, alive but broken, bones shattered, eyes rolled back. Ethan was still standing, barely. Blood dripping from his mouth and chest, breath shallow, shoulder dislocated. She ran to him. "You won?" He shook his head. "No, I didn't win. I just survived. Again." From a rooftop, Kazuo watched, alone, silent, and he wept. Not from regret, but because he finally understood that the man he tried to destroy was the only one who still carried honor. The next day, the barricades fell. The media exploded. Images of Ethan treated by volunteer medics flashed around the world. He gave no interviews. No smiles, no escape. He simply vanished again, leaving behind the trail of a name no one would ever forget. 3 days later, Ethan Crane was gone. The helicopters stopped circling San Leandro. The surviving masters were quietly extracted by an unidentified Japanese team. No official statement was ever released, but the city still pulsed with the memory. On 12th Street, Crane was scrawled across a broken window. In the central plaza, a mural appeared. His face, eyes closed above the words. They tried to bury him. They didn't know he was a root. Lucy walked those streets changed. She had disappeared from social media, left her apartment, abandoned her newsroom. She was on a mission. The only lead came from Martin, an old mechanic in the mountains 3 hours away. A man showed up here bleeding, barefoot, spoke little, slept 2 days straight, then fixed an engine with me and vanished into the woods. Lucy arrived the next morning. Among the trees, damp branches, and smoke trails, she found signs, footprints, a broken glass bottle, rope, and silence. "Ethan?" she called. "I know you're here. You always know before I do." No answer, until a voice behind her. "What are you looking for?" She turned slowly. Ethan was different. Clean-shaven, no dirt, no weight on his shoulders, carrying firewood in one arm and a small backpack. "You're cleansing yourself," she said. "No, preparing." "For what?" He set the wood down, stared at the horizon, then answered, "I left too much pain behind, and pain always finds its way back. This time, I'm going to it. For the first time, by choice." Lucy stayed, not as a reporter, but as part of rebuilding. Ethan raised a wooden hut with a tarp roof, each hammer strike like a blow against the past. He tended a wounded fox like an old comrade. He laughed alone, hands covered in dirt, when the foundation finally stood. In the forest silence, Ethan was remaking himself. But peace never lasts. One cold morning, Lucy got an email from an unknown sender. The Takeda clan is dismantled, but the name Crane appeared in an International Security Committee meeting. You're on the radar. Leave. She showed Ethan, expecting him to run, to disappear again. But he surprised her. It's time to step into the light. Not as a weapon, not as a ghost, but as a witness. He cut his hair, slipped into an old suit, and walked down the mountain with Lucy beside him. They entered a press event in downtown Oakland. Lucy went first, asked for 15 minutes, speaking not as a journalist but as a citizen, as the sister of a forgotten victim of Operation Curai. When Ethan stepped onto the stage, the flashes froze the world. My name is Ethan Crane. I'm no hero, I'm no martyr. I was used, and today I'm here to say, we are not weapons. The ghosts they make always come back. If you thought you buried me, you should have made sure I couldn't rise again. But I did, and I'm done sleeping. The crowd rose. Some cheered, some cried, many recorded, but no one ever dared call him a drunk again. In the days that followed, he didn't go back to the woods. He stayed, worked in a garage, slept on a thin mattress in a concrete-walled room. Began training neighborhood kids, teaching them to use their bodies only as defense, never again as weapons. Lucy watched. He still bled inside, still woke from nightmares. But now there was something he'd never had before: choice. And that was Ethan Crane's greatest victory. The world already knew the name Ethan Crane. After the speech in Oakland, he became a symbol, to some of resistance, to others of danger. But he didn't care about labels. For the first time, he was in control of his own story. In Washington, a special National Security Committee debated what to do about the Crane case. Compromising documents had leaked, and the truth about Operation Curai was echoing inside international courts. But for some, Ethan was worth more dead than alive. An informal order was given: erase the past, silence the present, don't allow a future. Kazuo Takeda, isolated in a temple on the outskirts of Kyoto, received word his name had been struck from the clan's official registry. No longer master, no longer honored, just a ghost, like Ethan once was. He understood then. The balance was fragile. Those who had used him would try to use Ethan too, if they could. They'll try to break him, and if they can't, they'll bury him. Kazuo packed a suitcase, not with weapons, but with documents. Proof he had kept since the beginning. If Ethan was the only man brave enough to stand, Kazuo would be the one to keep him from falling. Lucy was being followed, first drones, then cars with fake plates. Her email hacked, her home turned upside down. She knew what it meant. They wouldn't go at Ethan directly. They'd go through her. They're setting me up, she told him. They want me dead, and they'll make it look like you. Ethan listened in silence, pulled on his jacket, looked at the darkening sky. No more running. That night he went back to where it all began, the makeshift ring in Chinatown, alone, unarmed. If you want to erase me, meet me where you created this legend. The bait worked. Hours later, 6 men in black closed in. Not masters, operatives, black ops, off the books, lethal. Ethan saw them before they even heard their own hearts pounding. He didn't strike, just raised his hands, empty of rage, heavy with presence. They hesitated. That's when Kazuo appeared. Leave, he ordered. Now. You don't give orders anymore, one agent sneered. I still choose who I die for. And today, I'll die for him if I must. The air sliced with tension. Lucy filmed from a distance. She knew this was the final shove before the fall, but then something unexpected. A helicopter broke the sky, not military, press. Journalists had received the files Kazuo sent anonymously hours before. They knew. They were broadcasting live. The agents froze. They couldn't act, not in public, not under the world's eyes. Ethan, Kazuo, and Lucy stood in the Chinatown ring, surrounded but untouchable. "They'll back off for now," Kazuo said. "They won't stop," Ethan answered. "Now that they know I won't hide, they'll try to bend me." Kazuo looked at him. "Then it's time to do what they fear most." "What's that?" "Live." The next morning, an envelope reached an international newsroom. Inside, CIA mission logs, signed orders, names of officers, illegal transactions. Kazuo had handed over everything, his final redemption, and the spark that lit the inevitable climax. Because now, the truth was out, but the question remained, who would survive it? Midnight. US government servers glitched. For 37 seconds, the system tracking covert identities went offline. Enough time for someone to vanish, or, in Ethan Crane's case, appear exactly where he wanted. The address, a nondescript building in Washington, D.C. Outside, a research institute. Inside, the operational hub of missions even the president didn't know about. Ethan entered alone, no weapon, just a steel case under his arm, Kazuo's files, proof, records, audio, video, everything. At reception, a woman recognized him, not by his face, but by the silence. "Crane, my God, you... I want the director, now." Minutes later, he stood face to face with the man who'd signed his disappearance 7 years ago, Director Langford. "You should be dead," Langford said flatly. "You tried. And now what? You want justice?" Ethan set the case on the desk, opened it, spilled everything out. "I don't want justice." Langford leaned closer. "Then why are you here?" Ethan locked eyes. "Because this is going live now." Langford froze. The camera in Ethan's badge blinked red. "I didn't come to talk. I came to confess. Everything. Live. With you here. If you kill me, they'll know. If you arrest me, they'll know. Try to silence me. It won't work anymore." Outside, Lucy watched the feed from a hidden laptop. Tens of thousands already tuned in. Journalists had been told to record and rebroadcast. It was unstoppable. Langford scoffed. "No one will believe you. You're just a crazy drunk, a broken soldier." Ethan stepped forward. "You're right, but the world doesn't have to believe me anymore. They'll see." Langford reached for the kill switch. Nothing worked. Ethan tapped the second button on his badge. "Back up, satellite uplink. Good luck." Langford drew a gun. "You think you'll survive this?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I didn't come to survive. I came to end it." The shot hit his shoulder. He staggered back, dropped, then flung a hidden drive into the agency's main server tower. Blue light raced through the cables. On screen, classified files spilled open. Black Ops missions, illegal orders, sanctioned executions. The system was bleeding secrets. Langford fired again, but before the bullet struck home, Kazuo Takeda stormed in, blade flashing. He slashed Langford's arm, but the gun went off. Kazuo staggered, hit in the gut. Ethan crawled to him. Why'd you come?" Kazuo bled, smiled faintly. "Because you showed me the right thing, and even when it was too late." He died there, at peace. The world saw it all. Live. Hours later, Ethan was arrested, but not silenced. He was now a key witness to crimes that could not be buried, a living symbol of a truth that had escaped the shadows. Days passed. Lucy visited him in a sterile room, guarded by agents. He sat unshackled. "You won," she said. "No, I just lit the match. The dark's still out there." "You gonna run again?" A faint smile. "For the first time, I don't have to." Outside, crowds roared his name, but Ethan didn't care. The most dangerous man in the world wasn't the one who broke bones. It was the one with nothing left to hide, and that truth was indestructible. 3 months had passed. The story of Ethan Crane had spread like a scar across the world's face. International headlines, documentaries, global security panels. He had gone from being a buried name to becoming an unavoidable figure. Uncomfortable, praised, and above all, real. The International Human Rights Committee had opened investigations into the agencies named in the leaked files. Agents were suspended. Executives were summoned. Once secret protocols were now debated in public forums. But Ethan didn't want a stage. He didn't want revenge. He asked for humanitarian asylum in a country without extradition. It was denied. So he did the unthinkable. He agreed to remain in custody. "If they're going to judge me," he told Lucy, "then let them do it in the daylight. No more shadows." And so it began. His trial became the first of its kind, a former operative putting the very system that created him on trial. His defense wasn't about denying the past. It was about showing all of it, uncut, unfiltered. Lucy, meanwhile, refused TV contracts and publishing deals that wanted to turn the story into a book. Instead, she founded an organization in her sister's name, offering legal aid to families victimized by covert operations around the globe. Her first case, Ethan's. She visited him weekly, always with notebooks in hand, always with eyes steady. "You changed everything, you know. I just survived." Surviving Ethan is the most revolutionary act there is. Back in Japan, Kazuo's temple was reopened as a place of silence. No rituals, no hierarchies, just an empty dojo with one banner on the wall. When honor can no longer win, let truth win instead. Former disciples returned, not to train, but to listen. At the end of the trial, Ethan was given one last chance to speak before judges and cameras. The world expected a grand speech, a final accusation, a roar, but all he said was, "They used me, but now I exist." Then he lowered the microphone and walked out, never looking back. No one knows where he is now. Some say he lives quietly in the mountains of Colombia. Others swear they saw him training young refugees in Lebanon. But when a reporter pressed Lucy, she simply smiled. Ethan didn't run. He just chose not to be found. In a remote village in northern Thailand, a child falls during practice. Frustrated, the boy cries. A man with tired eyes, stubble on his face, and a deep gaze steps forward. He reaches out a hand, saying nothing. The child stands. He smiles. On the dojo wall, handwritten, "Strength isn't what destroys, it's what lifts." He wipes sweat from his forehead and goes back to training. No one there calls him Ethan. But everyone feels that somehow the world is a little fairer with him around. If this story touched you, surprised you, or made you rethink what it means to survive, share it. There are Ethan Cranes everywhere, invisible, surviving in silence between alleys and oblivion. Help this story reach those who need to hear that even the most broken can rise again, and that truth, no matter how suffocated, always finds a way to breathe. Comment below. Do you believe Ethan made the right choice? And what would you have done in his place? Your voice could turn this story into something greater.